Hi everyone. So this little talk is on interrupters. And there are a whole different kind, a bunch of interrupters. And so I want you to think about them in the full range, all the possibilities. And I've listed here just 4 different types. I don't know, there are even 4, maybe 3 different types. So some of you, if I say use interrupters, you're going to say to me, well, is it just a transition? Are you just moving the transition that I would have used at the beginning of the sentence and now putting it sort of near the middle? And certainly there are transitions like on the other hand or as well that do function as interrupters. So certainly transitions are a cool thing to move back in the sentence and interrupt the flow sometimes. But not all interrupters are transitions. There are a whole category of interrupters that are adverbs, and surprisingly is one of them. So sometimes they're adverbs. And then sometimes there are these little phrases that people just add to a sentence that develop in the language. To be perfectly honest is a great one. You just toss that in a sentence and it interrupts it briefly. So I don't know what to call these guys. They're sort of like little common phrases. When time permits is slightly different. It's not so much a generic phrase. It's slightly generic. And they both kind of do the same thing. They convey information, like I'm going to be more honest here, or do this at your own speed. But they're said in a sort of stereotypical or almost cliche way, but it's still okay to use them. So the thing that I want you to try is you start out a sentence, and then you give me a comma, and then you give me the interrupter, and then you give me another comma, and then you finish the sentence. And the reason you do this is just for variation of rhythm, and you know you have an interrupter if you can yank out this part, the comma and the words in the comma, and you have a complete sentence. Okay? So I've given you some examples of all of these used in a sentence. Could each of you, when time permits, sign up for a conference? So this whole thing is your interrupter. This second assignment, to be perfectly honest, requires much more work than the first one did. The African-American reporter surprisingly threw himself onto the white power protester to protect him from the agitated crowd. Malaysia, on the other hand, has done more to protect its forests than Indonesia has. Now, we're going to do a whole section on the use of 2 long dashes and the use of parentheses. And what's going to be hard for you is you're going to have to decide whether, and they all kind of interrupt, but sometimes you're going to want to interrupt with commas, and sometimes 2 long dashes, and sometimes with a parenthetical statement. And I'm going to talk more about why you choose certain punctuation later. But what I want you to know is that you kind of have to decide. It's more of an art than a science. And so sometimes, like this one here, is the same interrupter as up here. But this time, instead of commas, I use 2 long dashes. The second assignment requires much more work, to be perfectly honest, than the first paper did. And all I can say is the more you write and the more that you get used to reading how other people write, the more you'll know whether oh, this is a case that I should use commas, and this is a case where I should use 2 long dashes. But you always have that option, or you frequently have that option, okay? So use an interrupter. It's what sophisticated, mature writers do every now and then, not every sentence. I don't see them in your papers now, so kind of spice it up a little bit. And then try to figure out, is this a time when I want to have 2 long dashes or 2 commas? And there's a whole other talk where I talk more about this. So if you're still confused, wait till that talk, okay? Okay, I want to see some interrupters out there. Good luck.